Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Daisy. For today's video, I will be reading my subscribers' spooky stories, but this time the stories are going to be about encounters of sleep paralysis. So grab your snacks, grab your cobija, and let's get straight into it. Hi Daisy. I've always been fascinated by the paranormal, and I finally driven myself to speak about my own paranormal experience. A couple of years ago, I was busy cleaning around my house and getting physically tired, to the point where I decided to sleep way earlier than usual. It was about 8 p.m., which was really rare for me. I fell asleep fairly quickly, but something weird woke me up around 2 or 3 a.m. I suddenly felt scared. My room was really quiet, and I could hear every little noise. I closed my eyes, trying to sleep, but out of nowhere, I felt that I was being watched. I have a bunk bed, so I couldn't see the full thing since it was being cut off by the top half of my bed. Once I had opened my eyes, I could make out some of its details from the light that was peering through my window curtains. That's when I saw a tall, dark figure at the end of the bunk bed in all black, and it was holding something in its right hand. I realized what it was after moments of analyzing it. It was death. Death was just standing at the end of my bed, motionless. I couldn't move or scream because of how terrified I was. My room ended up getting really cold as well. Then I heard a voice in my head, but it sounded so loud that it couldn't have possibly been in my head. I kept hearing, "It's time." I proceeded to feel like I was floating, and suddenly I was in a third-person perspective, looking at myself, sleeping. I started praying a Padre Nuestro and a Ave Maria to free myself from the paralysis. Just when I was about to give up, the figure disappeared, and I could move again. My room slowly regained its normal temperature, but I was still in shock. I was out of breath. I'm not sure if it was from the moment I left my body and didn't know if I stopped breathing or from how scared I was. A few weeks after my experience, I found out that my grandma had the same encounter with death a week prior to my experience. My grandma and I are both heavy believers in the paranormal and are very spiritually connected. So now I'm left with a bunch of questions rather than answers. If it couldn't take my grandma, was it trying to take me? If so, why did it stop? I still question my experience from time to time. I don't know if it was a nightmare or if I really did see death that night. It was one of the most scariest things that has happened to me. Thank you for taking the time to read my story. I hope with this, I will be able to get a little more insight into what really happened that night. Hello Daisy, my name is Natalia, and I've been watching your videos for a couple of months now during work. They really entertain me, so I figured I'd send in my own stories. Thank you so much, Natalia. To start off, the first story isn't mine, but it happened to my godmother a couple of years back. However, there is some backstory to it that I feel is intertwined with it. A couple of years ago, my godmother, my aunts, and I were sitting by a lumbre, a bonfire, as we tend to do in Mexico, and as usual, we were chismeando, gossiping. It's important to note that my mom wasn't there, which is a big part of the story. My godmother expressed how horrible her sleep had been. She described what I can only call sleep paralysis. She tried to call for help and move, but was unable to. She said that in the corner of her room was a man in a hat, not doing anything, but just staring. And for her, that was enough to feel a cold breeze in her bones. She knew that whoever or whatever it was there to take her. During the next couple of months, she kept seeing the same man. However, instead of staying by the corner of the room, he was slowly getting closer to her until, in her latest paralysis, he was standing right on top of her in bed. She never saw his face until the last dream. If you ever played Loteria, she described him to look like El Catrín, if that makes sense. One afternoon, when it was just my mom, godmother, and I in the car, I thought to ask my godmother how she had slept the night before, due to her sleep paralysis. My mom wondered out loud what we were talking about. When my grandmother told her the whole story, my mom got extremely pale and asked if she was joking. When I confirmed that she was, in fact, not lying, my mom told us a story she remembered when they were both still kids. According to my mom, she had already seen this figure 3 times, and all 3 times it was following my godmother. The first was when they were 6 in their backyard. The second was in one of their uncle's houses, which is known to be haunted. The figure wasn't doing anything but just staring at her. My mom has always been sensitive to these types of things, and she's never usually scared. But she said every time she saw this being, she froze in fear and couldn't do anything. However, the last time she saw it was in the middle of the night in their childhood home, standing over my godmother's body, just like she described in her own paralysis. After this, she went to a priest, and the paralysis stopped for years. The story doesn't end there. During the span of 6 years, my mom and I moved to the US and had lived there for about 2 years. In this specific instance, my godmother was visiting and taking a nap on my mom's office couch while my mom was working. For reference, the desk is right next to the couch, so if you're sitting or laying there, you only have to reach your hand half-heartedly to touch the person at the desk. As my godmother was sleeping, she fell into paralysis for the first time in years. She remembers being pulled by her feet and being dragged. She remembers seeing my mom look towards her and then looking away as my godmother was pleading for help. She managed to get loose and kick whatever was holding her, praying as much as she could. She felt something starting to choke her and prevent her from praying. But before she could pass out, she felt my mom shake her awake. From my mom's perspective, she did look towards my godmother, but didn't see anything out of the ordinary. The only reason she woke her up was because she said something was telling her to. She described it more as an innate desperation to see my godmother's eyes. To this day, my godmother believes that if my mom hadn't woken her up, she would have been taken by that thing. And Lord knows what would have happened then. I wanted to share the scariest sleep paralysis experience of my life. I was a sophomore in high school. At the time, we were replacing an old couch with a new one we had just bought. I was left at one of my cousin's houses with my little cousin to babysit, while the rest of the family helped move the couches since we lived on the 2nd floor. When I came back to the apartment, I went into my room and immediately stopped as soon as I opened the door. My drawers from my dresser were all open to the exact same length, and the top of my dresser was messy, like someone had been looking through it. I had a cute little Virgencita statue, and it was turned away from my bed. I hadn't left it like that. I immediately ran to my mom and asked if anyone had been in my room while they moved the couches, and she said no, that nobody even went to the restroom. I showed her how my room was, and I could tell it bothered her too. My dad told us that we were being dramatic and told me to go to sleep, fixed my room, and went to bed. Still a little nervous, but I didn't want to overthink things. I suddenly woke up from my sleep, unable to move. My heart was racing, and all I could see was someone going through my dresser in a very aggressive way, like they were looking for something. At first, I thought it was my mom, so I tried to scream for her to wake me up, but it came out all mumbled. Then, The lady stopped and slowly started to turn to face me. That's when I knew it wasn't my mom, and I froze. I felt my body go cold. It was an old lady dressed in black. She was tall, and she just radiated evil. When she fully turned to me, she smiled, and out of nowhere, jumped on top of me. I started screaming and kicking, and then I realized I could move. So I sat up, looked around my room, but nothing was there. I was sweating and felt my body sore. I looked on top of my dresser, and there were things knocked over. I wanted to go to my parents' room so badly, but they're heavy sleepers, so they didn't hear anything, and I was too scared to get out of my bed. I didn't sleep for a week straight. I would take naps on the couch when my mom was cooking, so I knew someone was there. My mom later did a limpia on me and took me to a family friend who does more in-depth limpias, and I was fine after that. Hello, I'm Edith, and I have many stories, but I'll be sharing one for today. This happened to me, and thankfully, I haven't experienced something like this again. I'm currently living with my sister-in-law, my brother's fiance, in North Carolina. I babysit my niece for free and been doing it since she was born, almost 2 years now. I'll be leaving back to California in 2 weeks because my fiance and I are expecting, and he will be coming to help me pack and take me home. So here's how my routine usually went. My sister-in-law would wake up at 4:30 a.m., knock on my door, and I would grab one of my blankets and go to her room to sleep with my niece. At the time, my brother and my fiance were deployed to Afghanistan, and we were 7 hours behind their time. When it was night for us, it was daytime for them, and when it was day for us, it was nighttime for them. Anyways, I inherited a gift from my mom, and my sister-in-law's room has always given me a weird and uncomfortable feeling. I hate her room, but have no other choice because that's where my niece sleeps. She was close to being one at the time, and my sister-in-law was trying to get her used to sleeping in her crib. It was her second or third night sleeping in her crib, and I would sleep close to her crib in case she cried so I could quickly grab her and put her back to sleep. It usually took me some time, maybe 30-40 minutes to sleep just because of how uncomfortable I felt. I was finally asleep, and this was a night/morning I will never forget. Something quick before I continue. I started having sleep paralysis in my senior year, which was 3 years ago. I only had it 3 times, and each time was different, but always involved the same smiling little boy who would follow me and run fast after me. That smile was never wiped off his face, no matter what I did to try to lose him. But back to the story. As I was sleeping, I slowly began to wake up, and soon realized I had entered into the stage of sleep paralysis. This is exactly what I feel before something happens. I feel my body paralyzed. I feel a strong gust of wind, and I can hear the wind. I never saw anything during my sleep paralysis, but I always started off with a nightmare, and then the sleep paralysis would happen. This one was different. When I realized I was experiencing sleep paralysis, I tried to stay calm until I felt an arm slowly running across my lower back and gripping onto my right hip. As soon as I felt that, I got chills running down from my head to my toes, and my eyes widened. I heard a man breathing behind me. My head was facing the crib, so to the right. When in sleep paralysis, the only thing you can move are your eyes, so I began to pray in my head. The man, who felt like he was in his 50s, put his other hand on the upper part of my butt. I don't know how I did it, and I don't know if it was the praying, but I was able to move my right arm. I slowly reached for my niece's crib and began to shake it, hoping she would wake up and cry. Maybe that would make him go away, or make my niece stand up and touch my arm, making him go away since babies have a pure soul. but nothing happened. My knees did not wake up, so I grabbed onto the crib and tried my hardest to move my paralyzed body. As I began to slowly move, the arm around my waist gripped onto me harder. As soon as I felt the grip, I stopped. The next part is what I still, to this day, can't get out of my head. As I stopped, I felt him slowly press his chin against my right shoulder without being able to see his face. He began to breathe heavily as if he was satisfied, had really bad intentions, or was enjoying my fear. I have no idea why I did this, but I put my hand on his hand and I felt his rough, raspy skin and hairs. I got chills once again, and I don't know if that's what helped me get out of it, but I quickly jumped out of bed and ran to turn on the lights. When I grabbed my phone, it was 5:40 in the morning. It was almost 1 in the afternoon where my fiance was, so I called him crying and told him everything that happened. I can't see these entities, but I can sense them. I can see them in my dreams and through sleep paralysis, which I think is worse. To this day, I have no idea who that man was or what he looked like, and I don't wish to know either. My mom gave me a protection and I wear it every night since she has given it to me, and nothing happens. My body rejects the sleep paralysis. My body only tenses up for a few seconds, but immediately gets out of it. I slept with the lights on for almost a month after that experience. So that was it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you to everyone that wrote in their spooky stories. If you have a tip, something that can help people out to prevent sleep paralysis from happening, or when sleep paralysis is occurring, to shake it off, what do you guys do? If you have something that has helped you, I think it would be great if you guys would share that in the comment section. I know it would help someone out. Personally, it has never happened to me, and honestly, thank God, because insomnia for days, months, for years probably. Edith, girl, what you experienced, definitely I would have insomnia. So yeah, But if you have a tip, please, if you would like to share it in the comments. I'm sure it's gonna help someone out. But thank you guys so much for watching. Los quiero mucho. I hope you guys are doing amazing, and I hope to see you guys all in my next one. Bye.